Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining the webinar today about tips for applicants. My name is Glenn Landers, and I'm the co-PI of the project. And I wanted to start the webinar with just a few housekeeping items. First of all, I had to figure out how to advance the slide. All of you are on mute, and you'll remain on mute through the duration of the webinar. There is a chat box. We called it a question box, but there's a chat box that you are welcome to submit questions to. We will answer as many questions as we can. If we can't get to a question today, then we will put all of our questions in the frequently asked questions that will be added to on the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation website. If you have additional questions after the webinar, send them to aligning@gsu.edu. And remember, we said in the first webinar, we cannot answer your very specific questions. We have to be fair to all applicants. So we can answer questions in a general way, but most often we will be directing you back to the request for proposals for questions that come up. So with me today is Dr. Karen Minyard, who is the Principal Investigator of Aligning Systems for Health. She is also the CEO of the Georgia Health Policy Center. And the Georgia Health Policy Center is the coordinating office for RWJF Aligning Systems for Health.
Good morning, everyone.
I'm also assisted here today with one of our great staff members of the project, Aliza Petawala, and she'll be keeping track of the questions that come up in the chat box that we'll be answering toward the end of our time together. First of all, I wanted to say congratulations. There were 151 applications in total, and we have advanced 27 of those to the next round. So there was quite a bit of competition, and we're really excited to see what you all are going to submit. I'm going to start with some very general reminders. We went over these in the first webinar, but they bear repeating. Number one, as you probably all know, is that all proposals for the solicitation must be submitted via the RWJF online system. So the link is there on the slide, and you can use the Apply Online link to get to where you need to be. You've all done this previously for the brief proposal, so you should be well-versed in how to do that. I also need to remind you, particularly at this point, that when you're writing, please use 11-point Arial font and black type. Use the template that's provided. Do not use anything else. And I highlighted the next part in green because we don't want you to come this far and be disqualified because of a technicality. So the entire document, including section headings, should be no more than 20 pages with double spacing and 1-inch margins on the top, bottom, and sides of the page. So the template that you're provided, that you will download, fill out, and then upload, it will be converted to a PDF in the system, is set at 1-inch margins. And we do not want you to change those margins in order to give yourselves more space. We also don't want you to use single space when you're writing the proposal. The unfortunate thing is, if you do any of those things, if you expand the margins, if you write it single spaced, we will be doing an initial review just to see if folks have followed those instructions. If you have not, we will take your proposal out of consideration and it will not get reviewed. And that's a tough decision we have to make, but the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is very strict on being fair to everyone. And if somebody has had more space to write than others, then of course it's not fair. Late submissions will not be accepted. So make sure you get in the system, you give yourself plenty of time. I would say probably that more than half of the 151 proposals that came in initially were submitted on the very last day. They may have started prior to that, but they were submitted on the very last day. I would not recommend that because you want to make sure that everything's good and it gets uploaded and that everything's fine before you submit it. And you want to give yourself plenty of time for that. So this, as we said, are tips for you to write a really good proposal. And I'm going to anchor you in a couple of things. The first of which is the cross-sector alignment theory of change. You've all seen this before. It's in the request for proposals. This is what our work is all about. This is what we're trying to learn about. And all of your proposals should be addressing some part of this theory of change. The strongest proposals, the ones that will rise to the top, are the ones that will help us learn something really interesting about this. I can't stress this enough. The theory of change is what you need to anchor your work in. It should be referred to in your proposal, and your proposal should clearly explain how we are going to learn about the theory of change. I also wanted to touch on the research question areas that we showed you the last time. And one of the main reasons for that is that we are doing a comprehensive, systematic review of the literature for this project. It is just about ready, but back in the fall, in anticipation of this call for proposals, we did a summary look at what are some of the unanswered questions. And so these are those, and I know you've already thought about what you want to address, but the closer you can align your questions with the unanswered questions that we discovered back in the fall, I think will help you write an even stronger proposal. So the first, I'm going to go through these fairly quickly because we've seen them before. The first is questions about the four components of cross-sector alignment. So the areas of shared outcomes, data and measurement, financing, and governance, and how all of those may affect alignment or interplay with one another. The next question area is factors interacting with the core components that promote or inhibit cross-sector alignment. And when you're looking at the theory of change, those are the sections to the left of the core components, the internal and external factors affecting alignment, and then to the right of the core components, the factors that affect success. So we're interested in the core components, but we're also interested in these other areas. How do they all interact? How do they all affect cross-sector alignment? And particularly, how do they impact the goals and needs of the people and individuals that all of those sectors serve? And then the final area is questions about outcomes resulting from cross-sector alignment. I think so far we've seen a nice mix of outcomes. Some folks are thinking about outcomes of alignment itself, and those tend to be more systems or policy types of outcomes. And then there are outcomes that might actually affect populations or individuals. And those tend to be in the health and well-being outcomes. So think about these three areas. To the degree that you can align with those, I think you'll be well served. Now I'm going to move on to the proposal narrative sections. And I'm going to ask my colleague, Karen Minyard, to talk about just a bit from her a recent experience she had in reviewing proposals about what to think about as you're moving through these sections. Kind of put yourself in the reviewer's shoes as you're talking about background, relevance, objectives, methodologies, the partners, the study team, the dissemination plan. I think Karen has some wisdom about this that will help you write an even better proposal.
Good morning. I guess one piece of advice is to write your proposal so that it is easy to follow through these sections. One of the things that I think about a lot is if you would imagine that we have a team of internal and external reviewers, how can you make their job reviewing your proposal easy? How can you make it so that when they are seeking to rate your proposal, the information is in the place in your proposal where they would expect it to be, and that it's very crystal clear? Because what they're looking for, they have to rate you, and so being able to find it and be able to acknowledge that you have actually met a certain criteria is going to be important. The other thing that I would say is that in the proposals, the early proposals that were submitted, and in other proposals that I've been a part of reviewing, one of the things that holds proposals back is when the issues around the research are not well developed. And so really thinking about what is the question that we are seeking to answer, what is our idea, hypothesis, or theory, what do we think we're likely to find, and then being able to think about what is it that, how are we going to answer that question, and what are the data that we're going to use. A lot of times people spend a whole lot of time and they rush right into, we have these 4 data sets or these different 4 sets of data, and rush into that before we have the clarity about the background of, here is our question, here is what we think the answer might be because, and here is the way that we're going to go about answering the question and or questions, and here's the data that we're going to use to do that. So I can't overemphasize enough being very careful to put energy into making that core part of your research proposal well developed and clear so that it hangs together and there's no question that you have this developed and thought out and you're able to articulate that in the proposal. Is there more about that, Glenn, that you think we should add?
I think that gets it. I will tie it back to what I said earlier about the theory of change. I would think that this is not the place to create a new theory of change or suggest a new theory. We're really trying to focus it on this cross-sector alignment theory of change, and what we might learn from it. So I think Karen gives really good advice about make your case for why this is a compelling question, and then tell us how you're going to explore that. And I'll remind you that you have a little more than 3 times the space to describe this time. So we're looking for detail, particularly around your methods and particularly around the background. What is the motivation for this research? What has the literature not answered yet? That's really important for us to know. So you've got much more space, and I would say please make use of that space and give us enough detail to give it a fair appraisal. Is that it, Karen?
I wondered if there are any.
We were going to hit all the questions
okay.
at the end,
okay.
Yeah. So there were several additional sections of the proposal that will be reviewed this time that we didn't have as much information about last time. And each of these has its own form for you to fill out within the system. This is outside the 20 double-spaced pages that you'll be writing. One is the budget. Ultimately, if you get far enough, the budget will be scrutinized by folks at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. But imagine that your proposal budget is now going to be reviewed by 3 different kinds of reviewers. So we have our National Technical Advisory Committee who will be reviewing your proposals. We have limited staff here at the Georgia Health Policy Center and our affiliates who will be reviewing your proposal, and folks at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation who will be reviewing your proposal. And all of us have submitted proposals like this before. All of us have conducted research projects before. We have a sense of the way things should look in a budget. So we'll be looking for, in a general sense, does it make sense that there are this number of staff members here? Are there sufficient FTEs to support the work? Have they made the right considerations? Is there a large travel line, but there's not travel specific to the research in the proposal? So think of it as we are not accountants. We're not going to be adding up all the figures. We'll be looking at this to see, does it make sense? Does it support the research? And that's same for the budget narrative. We need sufficient detail so that we can understand how the budget you're requesting supports the research and answering the questions that you are proposing to answer. You have a lot more space this time to provide a timeline. Please make use of that, and please make it easy for us to follow so that it aligns very well with your narrative. Then you also have space for letters of support. I believe the letters of support are limited to 10, and each letter is limited to 2 pages. So I believe we have space for 20 pages, but each letter can be no more than 2 pages, maximum of 10. If by any chance I'm wrong on that, it's correctly described on the website. Those do not have to be double-spaced. Those should be on the letterhead of the organization that's providing it to you. Those will be uploaded and transferred into PDF, so you don't have to worry about that as much. Last time in the brief proposal, you gave us a fairly short blurb about the qualifications of the staff to do this work. And this time, in addition to telling us about that, you have the opportunity to upload CVs for the staff that are going to conduct the research. And there are specifications in the online system about how many and the maximum length that those can be. So please pay attention to that within the system, and if you have any questions related to that, send them through the aligning email to us. So 5 additional areas that you have more space to tell us about, and we will be paying attention to them this time. We didn't have this information the last time. All right, moving on. In the call for proposals, the original call for proposals, we conveyed to you all that we were looking particularly for some research that might adopt the realist approach. And so Karen is going to say a little bit more about that. I know that some of the finalists, the 27 finalists, are integrating aspects of the realist approach in it. We're going to take a few minutes here because some of you may want to add a realist approach or adopt some of this in the work that you're thinking about. So Karen, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I'm going to say just a little bit about the realist approach. This is a relatively new to the United States, much more prevalent in the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, maybe a little bit in Asia and Europe. But it is an approach to evaluation, an approach to research, or an approach to synthesis that focuses on the question of what works for whom and how and in what circumstances. And because we're in such a complex and evolving world as it relates to this area of alignment, we have an interest of using this method or this approach to look at the complexity of this situation or these things that you're studying. Now, a lot of my colleagues who are prominent in the realist community are involved in research projects where the realist approach is the complete research is a realist approach. Some are involved in research projects where there is a realist component, where some portion of the data or some information is organized in a way that allows you to look at answering this issue of what works for whom in what circumstances. So in this, we're thinking it's not just a yes or no, it's a more complex answer. And I was going to say a little bit about the realist cycle. There are 4 steps in that. First, there is what is the theory to be tested, and then collecting data. And when you're collecting the data, you're thinking about what is the context, what is the mechanism, and what are the outcomes. And for example, if you in your research are studying multiple sites and you're putting together information, you might consider thinking about in some component of your work, organizing your information by what is the context, what is the mechanism, that's what are the resources that are being invested, and what are the mind-changing things that are happening, and what are the outcomes. And then when you see this data organized by context, mechanism, and outcome, then you're looking at patterns to see which ones can match with the original theory, and then you revise the theory. So one of the things that might come out of your research is that you organize the way that you're thinking and look at some of your data in this way, and then you look at this theory of change that we're thinking about, and you might say, based on our insights, that we would see that this part of the theory might be changed in some way, or might be modified in some way. And so to the extent that you could include even a small portion of your work that is going to focus in on how do we muddle through this very complex and changing world that we're facing, using this kind of organizing framework, it will strengthen your proposal in our eyes. And I wanted to give you a couple of resources if you'd like to look a little bit more at the realist approach. Pawson and Tilley wrote about this first in a book, a SAGE book, that was published in 1997. So that would be an initial basic resource. Another thing that has happened is that the British government has, over the years, heavily invested in creating more systematic ways to apply the realist approach. And they have created a website which is called the RAMSES website, and it's RAMSES. And if you put in RAMSES and you put in realist, this will come up. And there is an incredible amount of information on that website. There are videos, there are examples, there are guides for how to do the work, and there is a listserv you can join so you could be part of a community where you can ask your questions and have the founders of this approach respond to your questions, or you can see what kinds of questions others are asking. So there's the book, and then there is the RAMSES website. The other thing that might be of interest is that the Georgia Health Policy Center is involved in the International Realist Conference that is being held in March in Dublin, Ireland. And if you put on your browser Realist 2020, then that conference will come up. And the conference is actually occurring after your proposals are due, but one of the things that you could do is look at the sessions and that proposal, see the content of some of the sessions and the people who are the speakers, and you might want to even go back to the previous International Realist Conference, which was in Brisbane, Australia in 2017, and all the papers are posted there. So it's a source of kind of up-to-date information and conversation that might help you in thinking about how you want to do this. You could even go on the RAMSES website and put in, I'm applying for a research award, and I have a small project, and I would like to, whatever your project is, and I'd like to have a small realist component to my research. What would you recommend? And people will probably respond to you with very good ideas about how to do this and how to bring this structure and this kind of thinking. My experience is that when you organize things in this way, in this rapidly changing environment, you structure your thinking in a way that some things, patterns appear that wouldn't appear with a more traditional approach. So we will look for some component of this realist approach and consider that as a strength in the proposals that you submit.
Great. Thank you, Karen. So we will put all of those references that Karen mentioned in the frequently asked questions. We'll update that on the proposal website, so you'll have those references at your disposal. We'll try to get all of these frequently asked questions up soon. And I think my colleague, Christy Fuller, who is listening in, or perhaps one of you, has already corrected me, and I said I might be wrong. The limit on the letters of support is actually 5, and it's 2 pages total. So 5 letters of 2 pages each. You can't do 1 letter of 10 pages or 2 letters of 5 pages. It's a maximum of 2 pages per letter, 5 letters total. That is the way it's described on the website and in the call for proposals. So I stand corrected on that. I do want to move on to the selection criteria, and no surprise, they are very similar to the areas that you will be writing to. So let me just say a bit about these. The relevance of your research is really about focusing on a research question that contributes to our understanding of cross-sector alignment. As I said earlier, that's really what we're wanting to learn. You now have 2 sections in the proposal where you can talk about this. The background, and the background is an area where you can talk about where or where not in the literature that this question is explored. And then you also have the area in relevance, why this is important, why we should be paying attention to this specific research question. Significance is what kind of an impact will your research have? Which audiences will it affect? What actions might be taken as a result of your research? Could it actually help move policy in some way? So please take the time to think about what the significance, the national significance of your work would be. Rigor gets to the point we made earlier about your methods section. So having the well-defined research question, having appropriate analytic methods, having a sample size that is appropriate to the questions you need answered. All of those are critically important when we talk about rigor. Can your explanation of how you're going to go about this research stand up to tight scrutiny? And then we'll be looking at the qualifications of your research team. We've given you a couple of preferences prior. Those were taken into consideration when we moved proposals to this round. But we really want to know at this stage, if you have a more junior member of the team, who else on the team is going to provide mentorship or guidance to that person? Meaningful engagement with local stakeholders. So there are 2 different ways that we are looking to see engagement with local stakeholders. One, of course, is through the sectors that you are going to be working on in the research. As stated in the preliminary proposal, we would like to see all 3 sectors, healthcare, public health, and social services. We must see at least 2. You should have that to have advanced to this stage. But secondarily, to the degree you can include some folks, local stakeholders, as members of the research team, that will make your proposal even that much stronger. And then feasibility gets to those additional sections that I talked about that we didn't have a chance to look at before. Your detailed budget, your budget narrative, your letters of support, and the CVs of the staff that will be doing the work, and the timeline. So taking all of that into consideration, is it feasible that you could get this work done in the amount of time that you say you can? So I wanted to make sure we addressed all of that. And then I want to go over key dates. We're already past January 8th, so we're about midway now for the proposals being written. Your deadline is February 5th at 3 p.m. We will not accept proposals after 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 12 Pacific Time. So please pay close attention to that. In early March, applicant finalists will be notified of funding recommendations. And at this stage, there may be some back and forth with you and the foundation related to budget or some questions they may have. And then we plan to award the grants May 1st of this year. So the contact information remains the same for this, the same as the short proposal. If you are experiencing technical difficulties with the application system, email csalinger@rwjf.org. If it's questions about the content of the call for proposals, email us at aligning@gsu.edu. And as with the short proposal, we cannot answer questions that are very specific to your idea. And we've actually gotten a few of those quite recently related to partners no longer being available, data no longer being available, and do we think that you should still go through with your proposal? And we can't render that judgment at this stage. You have to decide if you can get new partners, get new data, and proceed. So that is something that happens. We know partners may withdraw for whatever reason. Data may become unavailable for whatever reason. We can't make that determination for you. You will have to decide if you want to go forward and submit a full proposal. So I know you have questions. We've been receiving questions as we've been speaking, and Aliza, if you want to tear that off and hand it to me, no additional questions will come in as we speak. And Karen, I'll pause too, because you may have some thoughts as we go through this. So people have been very attentive to the 20 pages double-spaced for the narrative. We don't require a specific format for in-text citations. There's a question here if we have a specific format. We don't, or the foundation doesn't require a specific format for the citations. They are included in the 20-page limit. And so we have a related question: should the references also be double-spaced? We have a recommendation from a member of the team, and I think I'm going to go against that recommendation, because I know how I feel when I'm submitting a proposal or when I'm submitting a paper to a journal. I think double-spaced references look silly. So this is one area, and again, the Georgia Health Policy Center team will be doing this initial review. We will accept references included in the 20-page proposal that are single-spaced. We also have a similar question related to, Should tables be double-spaced? And I know tables look really crazy too when you double-space them, and in fact, they may actually be harder to understand. And so this is another area where we will accept tables that are not double-spaced. So references in tables, you do not have to double-space. Everything else in the narrative, you do. Karen, any thoughts on that?
That makes sense.
Okay. There's a question here about the block of identifying information in the template being single-spaced, and should you change that to double-spaced? No. So the template has some very specific information about what you should delete and where you should type. Just leave that block of identifying information at the top of the narrative as it is, and everything below that, with the exception of tables and with the exception of references, please double space. I think I've answered this question already. The question is, should we have partners from each sector on the project team? We are looking for project research teams that include people from the community. They don't necessarily have to be from each sector. We think it will make a stronger proposal by having folks from the community, but we're not requiring that you have partners from each sector. There was a second part to this question that says, or is it acceptable to have them involved in the project in a meaningful way, but not necessarily on the core project team? We absolutely expect to see folks from the sectors involved in a meaningful way. At the same time, as we said in the CFP, we will give preference to those proposals that include those individuals on the project team as well. We know that that's impossible sometimes, so we would like to see them. We would like to see individuals from the community, from those sectors on the research team. We definitely want them involved in the project in some way. There's a question, are you open to slight budget modifications to the total budget originally submitted? The answer is yes. I think that would be the total amount because we've only seen the total amount so far. There was a question, would this jeopardize the full proposal in any way? No, we understand things change. Again, justify your budget in the detailed budget and in the narrative, and you should be okay. There's a question, should letters of support be written by cross-sector partners or outside entities? Karen, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. I'm thinking that they should be written by those who can support your proposal and who will be involved in the work in some way. Karen, I'd be interested in your thoughts as well.
I think the purpose of letters of support is to show that you have the agreement of people who you are working with to actually do what you have written that they will do, and that you have the broad range of partnership in the community and across the sectors. So I think it's your judgment to include those that would verify and or strengthen your proposal, and it's your judgment which of 5 you choose to use.
So we have a note from one of our colleagues that gets to this, and this comes directly from the proposal system. So, and I'll just read this verbatim the way it states it. For identified partner organizations, upload letters on institution letterhead from the organization or organizations that will be providing support. Each partner organization should be included in the narrative section sectors, and their role should be clearly articulated. So just a little bit more information from the actual A&R system that you'll be responding to. I know Karen will have some ideas about this next question. I'll read it. Can you provide more explanation of the dissemination plan scoring criteria?
Well, I think what we're looking for is how can what you learn be translated to the different audiences for this work. And when we think about this work, there's several audiences. One audience is the people in regions, in communities, on the ground who are seeking to align their work and are looking for ways or how to do that successfully. Another audience is those who are helping communities, those who might be providing technical assistance or support to communities. Another of our audiences are other researchers, and we, of course, want to place this research within the research community and make the learning system across researchers. We also would like, as part of our work, to be able to help foundations in general have additional information about how they might position their foundation awards in ways that would support the overall outcome of this theory of change, which is well-being of people and well-being in communities. And then finally, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is seeking to think about their future as it relates to alignment. And so we will be seeking to translate our work for them. So we have these audiences that range from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, other foundations, other researchers, what I call catalysts, and local communities. And so those are the audiences that we are thinking about with our work. And so thinking, it's not maybe all of those audiences, but thinking about how your work might be translated and disseminated in ways that could help with those different audiences would match with the way that we're thinking about this. Now, your work isn't the only work that the Health Policy Center is doing. We're doing this comprehensive literature review. We're talking with many people in the field. We have a whole learning system designed, and this is one component of the learning system. So thinking about how your work fits into this learning system and how it can improve the work of these different support or different audiences that we're thinking about is the way that I would be thinking about the translation and dissemination.
Thanks, Karen.
Is there more about that?
Yeah, I would just, emphasize everything Karen just said by saying how will you get the word out about your research? How will you translate the findings of your research so that it is the most impactful? And we're open to creative ways of doing that. I think it might be related in a way to the next question. It says, should we budget for RWJF annual grantee meetings / travel? I am not aware at this date and time of an annual grantee meeting that you would need to attend. However, that could change. And certainly you would want to budget in time and travel for presenting your work at a number of different national meetings. One of them may be an RWJF annual meeting. We just don't know that at this stage. We haven't received information related to that. So I would say definitely include time and travel for dissemination, some of which may be as we get further into the grant period for an RWJF annual grantee meeting. There's a question, what if we need to submit our proposal to IRB review? How long will we wait for the approval after we announce funding results? I think what that question is asking is, say you get notice that you are going to be awarded, and you go ahead and you submit to your IRB. How long will the foundation and the Georgia Health Policy Center wait? I'm thinking the question is before the clock starts on your time period. That's probably a question we're going to have to answer in the frequently asked questions. I'm thinking that IRB should be included in the total time frame of the project, which is a maximum of 2 years. But we will confirm that, and we will include that in the frequently asked questions. And I know that will be the answer for the next question, because I don't have the information at my fingertips, and we may need to reach out to the foundation for this. Is there a page limit for the budget narrative? Do the formatting guidelines apply? According to the A&R system, which is the proposal system, there is no page limit, but we will double check that. We will also check on the formatting guidelines as far as double spaced and the margins and all of that. And we will include that in the frequently asked questions. So Eliza, I'm checking with you if there's any additional questions. So the first additional question is, how do we include travel for dissemination when dissemination will most likely happen after the grant period is over? That sounds like a catch-22. I think that is a good question. We'll have a think about that, and we'll include that in the frequently asked questions. Karen, I'm looking at you to see if you have any ideas about that off the top of your head.
I'm imagining that early travel as the project is coming to a close and dissemination as part of the project could be included. And if there's some big dissemination activity that we do together that is after the project period is over, that we would have to think about that in a different way financially. So
we'll have to give some more thought to that and add that to the frequently asked questions as well. There is a question, are letters of support to follow the 1-inch margins, double-spaced, etc.? I would use good judgment on the margins. Typically, a letter is not double-spaced, so that can be on single-spaced in the letters of support. I will say, though, again, think about the reviewers. Think about you reviewing a 20-page proposal with 5 letters of support that may be fairly long. Provide enough information for the reviewers to render appropriate consideration of your proposal, but no more than that. So I wouldn't try to be squeezing extra information into your letters of support. So I think we've answered all of the questions in the chat to the best of our ability at this time. We will follow up with the frequently asked questions, so please look there. We will put the references that Karen gave earlier about Realist in the frequently asked questions. I wish you luck in the remaining time that you have to complete your proposals. And Karen, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Well, I was just going to say that Glenn and I have been going through a process over the last few weeks of doing a realist synthesis of the initial 151 proposals. And we're looking at the context, mechanism, and outcome as it relates to that small amount of information we have in the original proposals. And just going through that has given us a window into how people are thinking about alignment, and it's very interesting. And so we appreciate your participating with us in this, and we know that not every single one of you are going to be funded, but I guess in a way your submitting a proposal is contributing to building our knowledge, because we will have the benefit of your thinking, and that will be a part of our learning going forward, just to know a little bit about how you're thinking. So thank you very much for being a partner with us in this.
Thank you all, and now go back to writing your proposals and have a great rest of your week.